I always thought marriage was about partnership, about having someone in your corner no matter how rough life got. Lauren and I had been together for 8 years, but somewhere along the way, that partnership turned into something else entirely. It started subtly, her jokes at my expense, little barbs disguised as humor. Oh, Ryan? He wouldn't last a day without me organizing his life. Everyone at dinner laughed, but I saw the look her sister gave me. Pity. It was the kind of pity you give to someone who doesn't even realize they've become a joke. That night, I brushed it off. Maybe she was just in a mood. Maybe I was being too sensitive. While you're here, leave a comment and let me know where you're watching from. I'd love to know. But it kept happening. At gatherings with friends, in front of her coworkers, even in passing conversations at the country club. If I hesitated over a menu, she'd roll her eyes. Just order already, Ryan. It's not rocket science. If I tried to talk about my work, she'd interrupt with a sigh. Oh God, here comes another riveting story about spreadsheets and meetings. The worst part was the way people laughed along, never quite sure if they should. I stopped bringing up my job. Stopped trying to share things with her. One evening, at a cocktail party, it hit a breaking point. We were with some of the club's wealthier members, people she was always eager to impress. Someone made a comment about travel, and I casually mentioned how I had been thinking about taking a trip to Italy someday. Lauren nearly choked on her drink. Ryan? Italy? Please. The last time we traveled, he got lost in the airport and panicked like a lost puppy. Laughter. I felt my face flush, my fist clenching under the table. But the look she gave me, daring me to react, kept me frozen. I stayed silent, swallowing the anger, the embarrassment, the urge to call her out. That night, lying in bed beside her, I stared at the ceiling, replaying the moment. Why did I let it slide? Why did I keep letting her turn me into a joke? I tried to remember the last time we had been happy. Really happy. Maybe years ago, before the country club, before she started treating life like a performance. I thought about how she used to look at me, with warmth, admiration. When had that stopped? The final straw came at her parents' anniversary party. The room was filled with family, close friends, people who had known us for years. Someone asked how we were doing, if we were thinking about kids. I opened my mouth to answer, but Lauren cut in first. Oh, Ryan with kids? Please. He can barely take care of himself. I'd have to raise 2 babies. More laughter. My jaw clenched. Lauren. My voice was low, controlled. She smirked. What? I looked around. Everyone was watching now. Waiting. Expecting me to just chuckle and let it slide like always. But I couldn't. Not this time. Do you even respect me anymore? The words came out before I could stop them. The room went silent. Lauren blinked, caught off guard. Then she laughed, but this time it was hollow. Oh, come on, Ryan. Don't be so dramatic. I shook my head, standing up. No, I'm serious. Do you? For the first time in a long time, she had nothing to say. I left the party without another word, the weight of something irreversible settling in my chest. The next morning, she acted like nothing had happened. But I knew, in that moment, that something had shifted, something had cracked, and there was no going back. The tension between us simmered beneath the surface, unspoken but ever present. After the night at her parents' anniversary party, Lauren and I had barely spoken about it. She acted as if nothing had happened, as if I hadn't called her out in front of a room full of people. But something had changed in me. I saw things I had ignored before, how dismissive she was, how she always had to be the one in control. A week later, we were at a dinner party with some friends from the country club. I was already dreading it. These gatherings had become a stage for Lauren to perform, to charm, to make me the punchline of her jokes. But this time, I paid attention to the details. The way she leaned in too close to the men she found interesting. The way her laughter was different, fuller, when she was talking to anyone but me. We were all seated at a long outdoor dining table under glowing string lights. The conversation turned to work and ambition. One of our friends, Adam, was talking about a new business venture. Lauren, sipping her wine, smirked. Adam, don't take this the wrong way, but you remind me of Ryan, always dreaming, but never quite getting there. Laughter rippled through the table. My grip tightened on my glass. I forced a smile. Funny. I don't remember asking for a comparison. She waved a dismissive hand. Oh, come on, Ryan. You know I'm joking. I could feel everyone watching. This was the moment. The moment I either let it slide or I stood up for myself. I set my glass down with a deliberate clink. Joking, huh? Like how you joke about me being clueless or weak, or embarrassing. It's interesting, Lauren. I don't think I've ever heard you say anything remotely kind about me in public. Silence. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Lauren's smile faltered for a fraction of a second before she let out a forced laugh. Oh my God, Ryan, relax. You're being dramatic. Dramatic? I leaned forward. You've been tearing me down for years. Maybe I just finally decided to stop pretending it's funny. Adam cleared his throat, awkwardly shifting in his seat. Lauren's face was red now, her eyes sharp. Ryan, stop making a scene. I exhaled slowly, shaking my head. No. You love making me the joke. You love playing the role of the woman who has to put up with her husband. But tell me, Lauren, if I'm such a disappointment, why are you still here? The table was dead silent. Even the servers looked uncomfortable. Lauren's mouth opened, but no words came out. For the first time in years, she had no comeback. I stood up, feeling lighter than I had in months. Enjoy your dinner. I walked away, not bothering to look back. That night, I didn't go home right away. I drove for hours, windows down, letting the cool night air clear my mind. When I finally returned, Lauren was waiting in the living room, arms crossed. What the hell was that? She snapped. I closed the door behind me, locking eyes with her. That was me deciding I'm done being humiliated by my own wife. She scoffed, but there was something uncertain in her eyes. You embarrassed me. Good, I said. Now you know how it feels. I walked past her, heading to bed without another word. And for the first time in a long time, I slept soundly. For the first time in years, I felt like I had some control back. Standing up to Lauren at the dinner party had shifted something between us. She had always relied on my silence, on my willingness to let things go, to avoid confrontation. But now, the balance had changed, and I could see it in her every move. She was careful around me in a way she never had been before, watching her words, measuring her tone. If I had been the old version of myself, I might have believed it meant she was realizing her mistakes, that she was making an effort. But I wasn't that man anymore. The thing about people like Lauren is that they never change. They just get better at hiding their true nature. A week passed, then another. The cold distance between us became our new normal. We still attended the same country club functions, still went through the motions of being a couple, but beneath the surface, we were playing a different game. And then, one evening, I found the box. I had come home early from work, something I rarely did, and Lauren wasn't expecting me. I stepped into the house, dropping my keys on the counter, and noticed right away that something felt off. There was an energy in the air, like a room where someone had just been arguing. I followed my instincts, walking toward the bedroom. The closet door was slightly open. Something pulled me toward it. Inside, tucked behind some neatly stacked sweaters, was a small gift box wrapped in crisp black paper with an elegant gold ribbon. It was expensive, no doubt. My first thought was that it was for me, maybe some belated attempt at an apology. But as I picked it up, something inside me told me otherwise. I unwrapped it carefully, my heart hammering in my chest. Inside was a sleek, monogrammed money clip, expensive, personalized. But not with my initials. My hands tightened around the box. The realization settled in like a slow-burning fire in my gut. This wasn't for me. I heard the front door open, the sound of Lauren's heels clicking against the hardwood floor. I forced myself to take a breath, to shove the box back where I found it, and walked out of the closet just as she stepped into the room. She barely glanced at me. You're home early. Yeah, I said, studying her expression. Something wrong? She hesitated for the briefest second, then smiled. No, just surprised. I watched her, looking for any crack in the performance. Busy day? She shrugged, moving toward the dresser, adjusting a piece of jewelry. Same as usual. Meetings, errands. Lunch with anyone? She glanced at me in the mirror. No. Why? I forced a small smile, feeling the anger coil tight inside me. Just wondering. She turned, giving me one of those polished, rehearsed looks. You're acting weird. I let out a low chuckle. Am I? For a moment, neither of us spoke. It was like a standoff, both of us waiting to see who would blink first. Finally, she sighed, rolling her eyes. Look, if you're still mad about that dinner party, I'm not. I interrupted. Forget it. I let it drop, playing my part, because I needed to be sure. A single gift, no matter how damning, wasn't enough. I had let her control the narrative for too long, let her make me feel like I was always the one in the wrong. Not this time. I went to bed that night with my mind racing. If she had gone this far, if she was buying gifts for someone else, it meant she had already convinced herself she deserved to. It meant there was more to find, more to uncover. And I was going to find it. Because this time, I wasn't going to be made a fool of. Lauren thought she was careful. She thought she was smarter than me. Maybe, for a long time, she had been. But the problem with people who believe they'll never get caught is that they get sloppy. They start taking risks they wouldn't normally take. They start getting comfortable in their deception. That's how I knew I'd find something if I kept looking. The gift had been the first crack in the facade. It was a mistake, a slip-up. And now that I had seen it, I couldn't unsee it. The next day, I left work early again, determined to search the house more thoroughly while Lauren was at her tennis lesson. The irony wasn't lost on me that she had no real interest in tennis. I started with the obvious places, drawers, the closet, under the bed. Nothing. But when I got to her nightstand, I found her tablet. Lauren was meticulous about keeping her phone locked down. But the tablet? She never expected me to check that. I powered it on, and to my surprise, no password. Just like that, I was in. I opened her email first, scanning through the messages. At first glance, everything seemed normal. Work emails, subscription newsletters, a few conversations with friends. But then I saw it, an exchange with a name I didn't recognize. Looking forward to our weekend together, one of the messages read. I felt my pulse in my throat as I scrolled further. The messages were vague, careful, but the context was clear. This wasn't just a friendship. Lauren had a lover. The room felt colder, my body tense with adrenaline. I kept reading, absorbing every detail, every clue. They had been meeting at the country club, the one place she knew I wouldn't question, because we both belonged there. I closed the tablet, my hands shaking with rage. That night, I watched her more closely than ever. The way she glanced at her phone and turned the screen away from me. The way she smiled to herself when she thought I wasn't looking. I needed more. I needed proof. Over the next few days, I started my own investigation. I checked our shared credit card statements, small, seemingly insignificant charges at the club restaurant on days when she was supposedly home. I started paying attention to the way she dressed when she left for these so-called lessons, her perfume a little heavier, her hair done just a little too perfectly. And then, the final confirmation. One evening, I told Lauren I had a late meeting. Instead, I parked outside the country club, far enough back to remain unseen. I watched from the shadows as she arrived, her car pulling into the private lot reserved for members. 15 minutes later, a man joined her. He was tall, athletic, the golf instructor. I clenched my jaw as I watched them laugh together, the easy familiarity between them undeniable. She leaned into him, touching his arm. Then, without hesitation, they disappeared into the clubhouse. My breath came slow and controlled. There it was, the truth I had been searching for. But I didn't storm in. I didn't make a scene. Because I wasn't interested in confrontation. I was interested in payback. I had the confirmation I needed. Lauren was cheating. The moment I saw her disappear into the clubhouse with that smug golf instructor, something inside me snapped into focus. There was no more doubt, no more second-guessing, no more hoping I was wrong. It was real, and now it was my move. But I wasn't going to confront her, not yet. Confrontation meant giving her the chance to lie, to twist the truth, to make herself the victim. No, I wanted something better. I wanted her to feel the weight of her choices without the comfort of excuses. So I planned. The next morning, I acted like nothing had changed. I greeted her the same way, made coffee, kissed her cheek as she walked past me. If she noticed that my lips barely grazed her skin, she didn't say anything. She was already scrolling through her phone, probably texting him. Busy day? I asked casually, watching her reaction. She glanced up, blinking like she had to remember I was still in the room. Yeah, a lot to do. I have my tennis lesson this afternoon. Tennis. Right. Sounds fun, I said, sipping my coffee. I was thinking we should go to the club together soon. We never do anymore. Her body stiffened for just a second before she forced a smile. Yeah, maybe. I've just been so busy lately. I nodded. I get it. I let it go, pretending to be the same oblivious husband she had always counted on. But behind the scenes, I was setting everything into motion. I spoke to a friend at the club, someone who owed me a favor. I arranged for access to the security feed, something typically reserved for staff and management. A quiet donation to the club ensured no one would question my request. That evening, I sat alone in my office, staring at my laptop screen as I reviewed the footage. There she was, just like before, meeting him near the locker rooms, disappearing inside together. A timestamp in the corner marked the moment she betrayed me again. I leaned back in my chair, exhaling slowly. The anger was there, burning deep, but I kept it contained. This wasn't just about rage. It was about control. I could have confronted her then and there, but that wasn't enough. She needed to feel this the way I had felt it. She needed to experience the humiliation she had so easily dismissed. So I planned something unforgettable. The next afternoon, I made a stop at the club before Lauren arrived. I checked in with my contact, made sure everything was in place. Then, I left and waited. Lauren, predictably, told me she had a last-minute errand to run. I nodded, kissed her cheek again. Drive safe. Then, I followed her. I parked out of sight, watched as she met him outside the locker rooms. They looked comfortable, practiced. How long had this been going on? Weeks? Months? Did she ever think about me when she was with him? Did she laugh at me behind my back? Not that it mattered. Because in a few minutes, everyone was going to know exactly who she really was. I waited until they were inside. Then, I locked the door from the outside. And then, I grabbed the club's PA system. Attention, members. Special announcement. Lauren Caldwell is currently in the men's locker room, getting a very hands-on golf lesson. Feel free to swing by. I stepped back and watched the chaos unfold. People turned, some laughing in disbelief, others pulling out their phones. Security rushed toward the locker rooms as a crowd gathered, murmurs turning into a full-on spectacle. By the time the door was unlocked, Lauren was a sweaty, red-faced mess, caught in the middle of her shame. She looked at me, horror spreading across her face. I handed her the divorce papers right there, in front of everyone. Hope your golf lessons were worth it, sweetheart. Then I walked away, leaving her to deal with the mess she had made. I drove home in silence, gripping the steering wheel with steady hands. The rage that had simmered for weeks was gone. In its place was something calmer, colder. I had done what I needed to do. Lauren had been exposed for who she really was, and now there was nothing left for her to hide behind. The divorce papers were in her hands. She had no more excuses, no more lies, no more control over me. I expected her to come home furious, maybe even in tears, ready to spin some sob story about how I'd misunderstood everything. But when she didn't show up right away, I realized she wasn't ready to face me. Maybe she was still at the club, scrambling to do damage control, or maybe she had gone straight to him, thinking he'd be the one to pick up the pieces. Good luck with that. I spent the next few hours packing up the things that mattered to me. Clothes, important documents, anything I didn't want her to touch. I wasn't leaving my house, but I wasn't about to let her hold anything over me, either. If she wanted to pretend she still had power in this, she was in for a rude awakening. It was past midnight when I finally heard the front door slam. Heavy footsteps, then the sharp sound of her dropping something on the table. I stayed seated in the living room, my arms crossed, waiting. She stormed into the room, her face twisted in rage. What the hell is wrong with you? I didn't flinch. Be more specific. You humiliated me in front of everyone. Do you have any idea what you've done? I tilted my head. Oh, I think I have a pretty good idea. Her hands balled into fists. You locked me in there like some kind of psychopath. I let out a low laugh. Psychopath? No, Lauren. A psychopath wouldn't have given you a way out. A psychopath would have made sure you had no way to explain yourself. I just did what you've been doing to me for months, except I did it in front of an audience. Her face darkened. You've destroyed my reputation. I leaned forward. You destroyed it yourself the second you started sneaking around with that idiot instructor. Did you really think no one would find out? She scoffed, crossing her arms. It wasn't like that. Then tell me what it was like. Silence. She looked away, jaw tight. I could see her trying to piece together a way out, but there wasn't one. You think I'm stupid, don't you? I continued. You think I wouldn't notice the late nights, the excuses, the way you checked your phone every time you thought I wasn't looking? You played me for a fool, Lauren. But you lost. And now, you have to live with it. Her lip quivered, but she held back tears. You never gave me attention anymore. I exhaled, shaking my head. Classic. Blame me. You humiliate me, betray me, and now it's my fault? You don't understand, she muttered, pacing. I needed something more. I clenched my jaw. Then you should have had the decency to leave first. She stopped walking, eyes burning into mine. So that's it? You're just throwing everything away? I stood up, my voice steady. No, Lauren. You threw it away the second you stepped into that locker room. I'm just making it official. She stared at me for a long moment, and I saw something shift in her expression. Panic. Maybe it was finally sinking in. Maybe she thought she could manipulate me into staying. But it was too late. Where am I supposed to go? She asked quietly. I shrugged. Not my problem. She let out a bitter laugh. running a hand through her hair. "You're really doing this?" I picked up my packed bags and walked past her. I already did. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I had nothing left to say. I sat in my lawyer's office, staring at the thick stack of documents that would finalize my divorce. The words on the pages seemed distant, like echoes of a life I had already left behind. Lauren had been silent for a few days after the country club debacle, probably trying to regroup, but then the storm hit. She called, texted, and even showed up at my office once, demanding to talk. I ignored every attempt. There was nothing left to discuss. "She's already retained a lawyer," my attorney said, flipping through a few papers. "And from what I can see, she's gearing up for a fight." I exhaled slowly, gripping the edge of my chair. "Of course she is. She always has to be in control. She's going to try to spin this," he continued. "She'll claim emotional neglect, say you were distant, maybe even throw in some fabricated abuse allegations to gain leverage." I clenched my jaw. "That's insane. She's the one who—" "It doesn't matter," he interrupted. "What matters is that we don't let her control the narrative. The country club incident is public knowledge. We have security footage, multiple witnesses. That's more than enough to ensure she doesn't walk away with everything." I nodded, feeling the weight of it all pressing down on me. "So what's our move?" "We file immediately. She's expecting you to hesitate, maybe to offer a settlement to make this go away quietly. But if we hit her with everything at once, she won't have time to manipulate the situation in her favor." I picked up the pen, my grip tightening. For a moment, a sliver of doubt crept in. This was the end of something that had once meant everything to me. But that version of us was long gone, and what remained was nothing but broken trust and betrayal. I signed the papers. "File it." 2 days later, Lauren showed up at my house. I heard the pounding on the door before I even saw her through the window. She was wearing one of her designer coats, hair still perfect, but her eyes betrayed the exhaustion underneath. I let her knock for a while before finally opening the door. She pushed past me into the house without hesitation. "We need to talk." I shut the door, locking eyes with her. "No, we don't." She crossed her arms, her nails digging into the fabric of her coat. "You're being ridiculous, Ryan. We built a life together. You can't just throw it away over one mistake." I scoffed. "One mistake? How many times were you practicing your swing with your golf coach?" Her jaw clenched. "That's not the point. You humiliated me in front of everyone. You took it too far." I stepped closer, my voice dropping. "No, Lauren. You took it too far the moment you thought you could lie to my face while sneaking around behind my back. I just made sure you faced the consequences." She exhaled sharply, shaking her head. "I can fight this, you know. The divorce. The settlement. I'll make sure you don't get what you want." I chuckled, cold and sharp. "Fight it all you want. But here's the thing, you have nothing to stand on. I have the receipts, the footage, the witnesses. Every text, every call, every pathetic excuse you made." Her face faltered for a split second before she masked it with defiance. "You're really going to do this? Just cut me out of your life like I was nothing? You did that yourself." She swallowed hard, her hands balling into fists. "You still love me." I tilted my head. "No, Lauren. I love the version of you that existed before all of this. The person you are now? I don't even recognize her." Silence hung between us, thick and suffocating. For the first time, she looked uncertain, vulnerable, but I didn't care. I wasn't here to comfort her. She straightened her shoulders, letting out a shaky breath. "You'll regret this." I smirked. "I doubt it." She turned and stormed out, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. I stood there for a moment, letting the finality of it all settle in. Then, I walked over to the counter where my copy of the divorce papers sat. I picked them up, exhaled, and finally felt something close to relief. I woke up to the sound of my own alarm, not the restless shuffling of someone beside me, not the heavy silence of a strained marriage weighing me down. Just me, in my own space, where every inch of the apartment felt like mine. The divorce was finalized 3 weeks ago. No more lawyer calls, no more tense meetings, no more arguments over assets that meant nothing to me. The only thing I had truly fought for was my peace, and now it was finally mine. The apartment was smaller than the house Lauren and I had shared, but it felt bigger. No memories lurking in the corners. No lingering scent of her perfume clinging to the furniture. Just an open, uncluttered space that felt like a fresh start. I made my coffee, sat by the window, and stared out at the city. The sun was rising, washing everything in a golden glow. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel trapped. My phone buzzed. It was Mike, my closest friend, and one of the few who had stuck by me through everything. You alive over there? I smirked. Barely. Adjusting to the quiet. Well, you better get used to it, because you're coming out tonight. No arguments. I hesitated. Nights out had been a thing of the past for so long. My life had revolved around Lauren's schedule, Lauren's priorities, Lauren's constant disapproval. I wasn't sure I even remembered how to just enjoy myself. You still there? Mike pressed. Yeah, I said, staring at my coffee. Fine. I'm in. Later that night, I walked into the bar with Mike and a few other friends I hadn't seen in months. They greeted me like I'd just returned from war. Look who finally escaped the dragon's lair. Someone joked, clapping me on the back. I laughed, genuinely laughed, for the first time in forever. Drinks were poured, stories were shared, and for once, I wasn't the guy in the toxic marriage. I wasn't the one everyone whispered about behind my back. I was just Ryan, having a good time. Then, across the bar, I saw her. Not Lauren. Someone new. She was sitting alone, stirring a drink with the kind of absent-minded focus that suggested she was deep in thought. She wasn't dressed to impress, wasn't trying to stand out, but something about her did. Maybe it was the way she seemed completely at ease with herself, something I had forgotten how to be. Mike followed my gaze. You thinking what I think you're thinking? I exhaled. I don't know what I'm thinking. Then go find out. I hesitated, but something in me pushed forward. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the quiet realization that I was finally allowed to make my own choices again. I walked over, clearing my throat slightly. You look like you're trying to solve a complex equation over there. She glanced up, surprised but not annoyed. A slow smile tugged at the corner of her lips. Just trying to decide if I actually like this drink or if I'm forcing myself to finish it. I chuckled. I respect the commitment. She tilted her head slightly, studying me. You don't look like the kind of guy who usually walks up to strangers in bars. That obvious? A little. I shrugged. I'm out of practice. She smiled again, warmer this time. Well, I promise not to hold that against you. We talked. Just talked. No expectations, no pressure, no weight of a failing marriage suffocating the moment. It was refreshing, and when she finally excused herself to leave, she hesitated. I don't usually do this, she admitted, pulling a pen from her purse and scribbling something on a napkin. But here. I glanced down at the number, then back up at her. I don't usually do this either. Then I guess we're both making exceptions. She left, and I stood there for a moment, holding the napkin like it was some kind of proof that I was allowed to move forward. The next morning, as I sat by the window drinking my coffee, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. A year had passed, yet the weight of the past no longer pressed against my chest when I woke up. The bitterness, the anger, the betrayal, those emotions had burned hot for a while, but like all fires, they eventually died down, leaving only ashes. And from those ashes, I had built something new. My apartment, once a temporary refuge, had become a home. I had added things that were mine, things that had nothing to do with Lauren or our shared past. Art that spoke to me, books I never had time to read before, small tokens of a life I was now living for myself. I had also picked up running, something I never did when I was married because I had been too exhausted from the constant battle of trying to please someone who was never satisfied. Now, every morning, I put in miles before sunrise, the rhythmic pounding of my feet against the pavement reminding me that I was in control of my own movement, my own direction. Work had also taken a turn for the better. Without Lauren draining me, I had thrown myself into my career, climbing the ladder faster than I thought possible. Promotions came, recognition followed, and for the first time in a long time, I felt respected. People listened when I spoke. They valued my ideas. My boss, who once treated me as an afterthought, now saw me as a key player. It was strange how much lighter life became when I wasn't carrying someone else's baggage on my back. Then there was Claire, the woman from the bar. The woman who had written her number on a napkin with a teasing smile, not knowing she had just become a defining moment in my life. At first, I had been hesitant, unsure if I was ready for anything beyond casual conversations and lighthearted dates. But she had been patient, never pushing, always letting things unfold at their own pace. And before I realized it, she had become a part of my world. We weren't rushing into anything. I wasn't looking to replace what had been broken, and she wasn't trying to fix me. We simply enjoyed each other's company, laughing over coffee, exchanging sarcastic remarks over dinner, sitting in comfortable silence when words weren't necessary. It was easy, and after everything I had been through, I had learned to appreciate the beauty in simplicity. Then one afternoon, As I walked through the city on my way to meet Claire, my phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. I almost ignored it, but something told me to pick up. Ryan, the voice on the other end said hesitantly. I knew that voice. Even after all this time, I knew it. Lauren, I replied, my tone neutral. There was a pause, as if she wasn't sure how to continue. I heard about your promotion. Congratulations. I waited. That wasn't why she had called. She sighed. Look, I know I have no right to ask this, but can we talk? I didn't answer immediately. Memories flickered through my mind. Her laughter at my expense, the humiliation, the betrayal, the moment I locked that locker room door and let the truth expose itself. But alongside those memories was something else, indifference. I don't think that's a good idea, I said finally. I just wanted to explain, she pressed. Things haven't been easy. Mark, I cut her off. I don't care about Mark, Lauren. I don't care about any of it. I moved on. She was silent for a moment. Then, almost a whisper, have you? I smiled to myself, not out of spite, but because I realized, in that exact moment, that I truly had. Yeah, I said. I really have. There was no need for closure. No need to rehash the past. The chapter was closed, and I wasn't interested in reopening it. Take care, Lauren. I ended the call before she could respond. When I met Claire at the cafe, she noticed the look on my face. Everything okay? I nodded. Better than okay. She smirked. You look like a man who just got some well-deserved karma. I laughed. Something like that. I reached into my pocket, running my fingers over the luxury watch I had kept from my marriage. The only thing I had left from that time. A reminder of who I had been, who I had become. With a final glance, I unstrapped it and set it on the table. Claire raised an eyebrow. You're done holding on to that, huh? I nodded. Yeah, time to move forward. She smiled, and as the afternoon sun spilled through the windows, I realized I had never felt lighter. Thank you for listening to the end. I hope you enjoyed it very much. Don't forget to give a like, and tell us in the comments what you would do in such a situation.